Today I want to talk about how AI may change writing and creating. You have probably seen headlines about how artificial intelligence, or AI, is coming out with these new tools for writing or creating illustrations or artwork. And I've been looking at this pretty deeply, and there's a lot that I'm finding that's giving me pause. So today I want to talk about three things. The first is why artificial intelligence and creative work is compelling. The second is why AI is likely to create a crisis in creative fields and how that might affect you. And third, ways that you can thrive as a creator even while these changes happen. Now, if you're someone who feels like you don't understand or care about AI, I want to encourage you to listen to this anyway. I'm 50 years old. I grew up as the art kid, so I was doing art really young, all through my elementary school and high school and after high school. I was the kid who had all the projects, all the writing and poetry and photography and illustration and painting and everything. All of my friends through all the years were the kind of weirdo art kids, whether they were performers or drama people or illustrators or writers. I married an incredible artist, and now day to day, all I do is work with writers. And I can tell you that in that time, I have never seen anything that can potentially change the creative world as completely or as rapidly as AI. So let's start by talking about why on earth is this so compelling? Because it's this type of thing that I think is so easy to just dismiss. Oh, I don't care about AI. I would never read a book written by AI. Or, AI art, it's unethical. The machine is stealing from artists. I would never, ever buy art created by AI. I prefer things that are crafted by a human being with a real beating heart. And these are phrases that I resonate with. I'm not making fun of them even though I'm using that voice. But what I find is that oftentimes these statements are too simplistic and too dismissive of something that people might not fully understand yet. I mean, maybe no one fully understands this yet because it's evolving so quickly. So there are quite a few big popular AI programs that are on the market now, and more seem to be created every single day. Two that I looked at that just had big new versions created, kind of roll out with them. One is a writing-based one called ChatGPT, and the other is an AI art generator called Midjourney. And I've done a whole bunch of experiments, and I've looked at what other people are doing, and what's coming out of them is compelling. So let me share you examples from other people first. Author Hugh Howey, who had huge success with his books and now has a new series coming out on Apple TV from the books. He said that he saw an example where AI was asked to make an argument in his writing style, and he read it. And his conclusion was, not only the AI writes better than me, it nails the argument I would have made. That's compelling. I saw a set designer named Gary McCain share some images he created with the AI art generator, saying, Midjourney is revolutionizing my job as a set designer. I looked him up, and his credentials are astounding and so impressive. He does set and costume design for operas and musicals. I saw someone use AI to create a prompt for multiple sneaker campaigns. And this was neat because he was using ChatGPT, the writing-based one, to create the prompts that would then create the visual ones. So it was amazing to see one person come up with the campaign concept itself using AI, the copy using AI, and then the images using AI. And to me, that showcased how this stuff will be infused in really interesting ways. Then a professor at the Wharton School talked about using AI just to get unstuck in the writing process. So he had asked it, give me 10 different ways to finish this paragraph. And he said, even if the answers aren't good, sometimes just getting something down is enough to overcome, as he calls it, the tyranny of the blank page. And to my surprise, some of my clients have already started using AI in our work together. One used it to help get versions of their mission statement written. So we had put together a bio, we'd sort of done this work, but then they wanted to shorten that. So they used AI to kind of help shorten it to that one-line bio, that one-line mission statement, which is really hard. Another used it to get details in describing their ideal reader. So again, we had done a lot of work to kind of get stuff out there. And it was neat because they said, yeah, the AI added these really interesting details that totally fit the person I had in mind, but I never would have thought to add myself. So the decisions that we make about engaging with AI will likely not be as simple as yes, AI or no AI, or I would never read an AI written book. Chances are, very soon or already, AI is going to be a tool that is used as a part of the larger creative process. And you may never know that AI was involved in coming up with ideas for a book cover, or coming up with ideas for a plot structure, or helping flesh out one character, or setting one scene, or getting one paragraph in better shape, or just helping them get unstuck. These tools are going to become more nuanced, and I do think of them as tools because that's how I've been toying with them and playing with them and seeing other people do that. I did an experiment the other week where I wanted to see, well, how good is this as something specific? So I found a real photo of someone from the mid-60s. It was a guy sitting in a pizza joint. And I have the details of who he was and what the location was. And I just played with Midjourney, putting in different prompts, trying to replicate the photo. And you can do this literally within seconds. So how it works is you can go into Midjourney once you set it up and type in one sentence, man, age 25, dark hair, white shirt, sitting in the corner of a pizza place with a counter, all these very simple lines. You can even just say, guy standing in a pizza place or in a restaurant, and it'll generate hyper realistic looking images. And it was interesting because I would go through trying to hone the prompt to kind of get the feel of that original photo. And it was incredible what came back. So many variations. And it was neat because when I look at the photos, there's a plenty that's wrong. Little things that don't feel realistic. A TV that's coming out of a counter in a weird way, or little details around fingers at the time, or the way signage was placed, or where the counter is compared to the cash register. But it was shocking how much it got right. The angle of the back of the guy sitting there, like the very realistic way that someone hunches over, or the creases of a shirt, or the expression on the face. And within just a few minutes, I had, 15, 18 different variations. And one I thought was good enough to kind of say, yeah, it basically did a pretty good job here of replicating a specific photo. And it's interesting. I was listening to a professional photographer talk the other day about how the world first scoffed at digital photography. So they were talking about the year 2000 and how the serious photography world just thought that digital photography was a joke and it would never go anywhere. And now, a mere, 23 years later, except for a hobbyist community, of which I'm a part, we don't even think about film photography. We don't even think about digital photos. We think that all photos are by nature digital photos. Now, film is alive and well. You can buy film, you can get film cameras. I have film cameras. I love film photography. It is amazing. And there are many people out there shooting with it. But that is still more of a hobbyist community, or a very small community compared to the total number of people taking images, which are all pretty much digital images. And the evolution of AI art and AI writing is happening incredibly quickly. One person in the Facebook group for Midjourney shared just the same prompt from a year ago. So Midjourney has been through 5, I think, big versions so far. And they shared the prompt that they put in, the one-line prompt, I think, from a year ago at version 1, then version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5, and showing you how it went from a very bad image of a person, like the face was nothing like a human face, the hair was disjointed, to, okay, still very, very bad, but interesting, to, okay, it's a little more illustrative and fake, but it's passable, to, okay, this is very good. The lighting is good. It looks realistic, still an illustrative style, to this looks pretty much like a real photo of a real person. And that's in 1 year. Imagine what that will be like another year from now or 3 years from now. Just that rate of change of what they're able to do. And I'm seeing that with writing as well. It's difficult to imagine in some ways that this will be a tool that will shift processes, every creative process, in a big way. So you can think about even just an image, that fake image of a person. If this was a real photo, we had to do a photo shoot for an ad, you would need to have obviously a model, a set designer, a lighting specialist, costume designers, digital editors, all of that. And those jobs very well might exist far into the future, hundreds, thousands of years in the future. But what's interesting, though, is that for some segment of the market, people will feel that these AI-created things are good enough. Or maybe they just use the AI to create a good enough concept, thereby cutting people out of the concept phase. Then when they want the actual thing, then they want the model and they want the lighting specialist and they want it to be an original photo that campaign can own. And it's compelling in a lot of ways. I was looking at someone who did some images of people at an outdoor music festival in the 1960s. And I'll tell you, the photos looked very real. And it made me think, how many months or how many years away are we from there being more fake AI-generated images of people at a 1960s music festival than real images? When will we not be able to tell anymore? Of course, I think sourcing will become very important with this to identify the real images from non-real. I'm sure that many of you, most of you, would say, oh, I could tell the difference. And maybe right now you can. But in a year, in 4 years, I don't know if you're going to be able to. It's really compelling. I don't know if I'd be able to. I'm not above any of this. And this is, I think, the crisis I'm really worried about with all of this, is how AI tools, they're coming into their own, will help encourage and interfere within creators, within writers, within illustrators, within artists, within all kinds of creators. These are already difficult fields to create in: writing, art, photography, illustration. Now it's not just more crowded with more people. It's not just, wow, well, more people have iPhones and the cameras in iPhones are so good. Then now it's not just me competing as a photographer. It's all these amateurs that are taking, honestly, pretty good photos, good enough. Now it's an AI program in milliseconds can spit out, I don't know the number, thousands of photos. I don't know the proper number. I could sit here all day and just create one kind of photo again and again and again and have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos in that one day. So I worry about the psychological effect that this can have. And my biggest fear is that, people who are vying for attention in writing and illustration, other fields, that they will stop creating. That they will say, I have an idea and I have a voice, but it's so crowded out there. I see so many compelling things coming out from AI-generated content that why bother? Why should I even bother doing this? And that's what I worry about. Or someone who's still going to do it, but feels really put down and it's not going to do it with the vigor that they otherwise would. Now, there's a lot of really important questions around AI-generated art and writing. Is it human? No. Is it stealing? Maybe, seems to be. But the key thing here is that it is happening. It will continue to happen. And there will be a generation of creators who will thrive because of AI. People who never would have thought of being creative before, who will toy with these programs and really find that it's a pathway to execute visions they had in their head that they never thought they could have done without AI. I was looking at a digital artist who previously had done a lot of original digital work. And now he was using his experience to create these AI-generated images. And I was looking at his Instagram account. he had a huge following, and the engagement on the AI generated images, so much engagement from so many people. People loved them, truly loved them, felt so inspired by them. And I scrolled back through his feed to try to get to the pre-AI generated images. And he had engagement on those, but nothing like the magnitude of what he's getting now. And that is fascinating to me. Someone who feels that this is a tool that is enhancing their creativity, and what they're finding is it's working. It's working internally for him. It's also working for his audience. That's interesting. I don't know how to define that. And again, it doesn't fall in this camp of AI yes or AI no. This is someone who is an artist before AI came around. So it's interesting. And we can think of, well, what comes next? I think the obvious next thing is video, which I know exists in some degree already, or AI-generated animation. What if anyone can create their own set of cartoon characters and animate a whole 20-minute short? And maybe there's AI-generated voices and what do they call Foley work? The work of making sounds during, like, someone walking through a room and they do clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. How would that change the industry? How would it empower people? How would it ruin other people's careers? I don't know. It's interesting, though, and it will probably be happening in some way, shape, or form. So this, again, comes back to that crisis, and I think it's a psychological and emotional crisis that AI may create within writers and artists and creators, that it might enhance their doubts about the possibility of their creative work finding an audience, or the idea the marketplace is so crowded that they shouldn't bother, or that all this new technology is so complicated they'll never understand it or catch up, and that everything in the arts today is so unfamiliar that they're just going to sit out. And I do the work that I do. I mean, I work with writers and creators, and I believe passionately that people should be creating and they should be sharing that work. I think it truly makes the world a better place. And I am infinitely inspired by those who create. So I worry about that psychological and emotional toll of discouraging people from creating. So as you navigate your creative work moving forward, I want to encourage you to not allow these changes to make you stop. And I don't want it to increase the level of stress that you feel in this process. So let's talk about some ways that you can thrive as a writer or artist or creator while all of this happens. So here are some things that I've been doing and thinking about, and I would encourage you to maybe consider doing or thinking about. One, doubling down on human connections. I do think people are hardwired to respond to other human beings, to faces, to voices, to human emotions. It's interesting. I feel like over the years, all I've ever heard about award shows is negative. But this year, I've never heard from so many friends on Facebook and social media that they were crying from the last Academy Awards because of how touching and emotional the speeches were in general, but especially from the cast who was winning from Everything Everywhere All at Once, the movie. And that reminded me of the power of human connection. I talk a lot about this idea of human-centered marketing, and I think that is going to be more relevant than ever when you consider how you share what you create, that people want to hear your backstory. They want to hear your process. They want to know that the work comes from a deeply human place. I want you to embrace that. And I think that applies to people who use AI to create art as well. I'm keeping an open mind when it comes to AI. I'm trying not to dismiss it outright, and I'm not trying to embrace it outright. I think that with AI, as with many things in life, multiple things can be true at the same time. It is entirely possible that AI is both stealing from artists and also creating new tools for artists. I've been experimenting with AI tools in small ways. I've never considered myself an early adopter, but I've been just playing with Midjourney and ChatGPT and kind of looking at what other people are talking about. I'm just getting random ideas and putting it in there, brainstorming ideas, just goofy ideas sometimes. And it's neat because I'm always surprised at what comes out and what I learn in the process. And I think that it helps you bridge the gap between, oh, I saw someone share a poem that they created with the AI, It was so bad. I'm not worried about AI doing anything with writing. Where you find one pithy example that someone else did and you use that to write off or to be afraid or whatever. Try it for yourself. I do think you will be surprised at the process. I'm listening to other people who are using these tools, especially because they're using these tools in ways I never would have thought of, and they're combining them in ways I never would have thought of. Some, following a Facebook group for Midjourney. I'm looking at people on Twitter who are doing this, and it's neat. There are some powerfully great examples and powerfully terrifying warnings coming from all of this. I'm considering where in the creative workflow these tools could become useful, even in very small ways. So again, with brainstorming, with getting ideas, with getting visuals, even if it's in an early stage of a larger process, AI might never show up in the final work, but it could show up somewhere along the way to help create momentum or get ideas down. I'm also embracing or continuing to embrace traditional tools of craft, writing in a basic text document. Using pen and paper, using typewriters, film cameras, acoustic guitars, all the traditional tools of arts and crafts. You get to choose the path that you take here. And, I can't predict the future. And there's more that I don't know about AI-generated writing art than what I do know. And everything I said here is probably wildly incomplete and maybe even useless after some new radical change happened after I recorded this and once it published. But then to me, what I think of is that this is the practice of someone who creates, that you're trying to match the world that's in your heart and in your mind with this idea of what you can create, what is possible. And this becomes the work that's a gateway to other people. The stories and the ideas and the knowledge that you can share is the culmination of that is how you move people with your work. If you have any comments or feedback, you can always reach me, dan@wegrowmedia.com. You can find me at wegrowmedia.com, my weekly newsletter at wegrowmedia.com/newsletter, and on social media at Dan Blank. Thank you so much for listening until the end.